Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is wound. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you're likely to hear wound used is to mean to cause a physical injury to someone. So when we think of physical injury here, we're going to think about the skin breaking. Okay, so when I say physical injury, I don't mean like we broke a bone or we sprained our ankle. I'm talking about, unfortunately, someone bleeding, right? That is generally what comes to mind with this particular verb. Okay. A second way you might hear wound used, though, is not connected to our physical body, but really our feelings, our emotions. So if we hurt or injure someone else's feelings, then we can use the verb wound to describe that. And I'll share some examples of that a little later with you. You should know the verb wound is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, we're just going to add ing to form wounding. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Our base verb, wound, ends in a D sound, so our past tense ending is going to make an id sound. We're going to add an extra syllable as we make these past tense and participle forms. So it should sound a little bit like this. Wounded, wounded. Okay. Now, you'll be happy to know no additional phrasal verbs for us to practice today. And instead, we're going to focus on making sentences in a couple different verb tenses with our verb wound. The first way we're going to practice today is to look at the imperative. Imperative, right? So this is a command where I'm telling someone to do something, or maybe I'm telling a group of people to do a particular action. What is special about this is that we do not have a stated subject, right? So we don't have I, you, we, they, or a person's name, right? We just start the sentence with the verb in the affirmative, right? So because we're either writing something or speaking directly to someone, that subject is implied. It's you, the person who's hearing or seeing this message, okay? Now, I have to say, this is a little odd in terms of using this verb as an imperative, but I had someone point out to me that they heard it, I think, in a movie or a TV show kind of centered around a war where some sort of commander was telling their group of soldiers, wound anyone who tries to break in, right? So telling this group of people, harm them, injure them, physically hurt them in this particular sentence. Okay? Now, for negative imperative sentences, we're telling someone not to do a particular action. Okay? You can see that here with don't wound my pride, right? So this is that second definition, talking about my feelings. Don't hurt my feelings, right? That is sort of what's being conveyed there. So to make a negative imperative, you can use do not and then the base verb, or you can say don't, like I did in my example. Now let's take a look at the present progressive. Okay. We use this verb tense to talk about an action that is in progress or something that is happening now. To make the present progressive, I need two parts. I need the present form of be, and then I need the ing form of the verb. Okay, so I like calling this present progressive because the two P's remind me of the two parts. Okay? In your classes, or maybe some books you're using, maybe other videos you're watching, you might hear this called the present continuous. That's fine. They mean the same thing. So let's look at an affirmative example. The sentence is, the rise in carbon dioxide levels is wounding marine life. Right? So here we're talking about climate change, global warming, right? And these impacts, so as carbon dioxide increases in our environment, marine animals or animals that live in our oceans, right? They are being physically injured. That's what we're describing here. Now, if I want to make a negative present progressive sentence, what I'm going to do is use a present form of be. So am, is, or are. Then I use not. Then I use that ing form of the verb. Here's another example. These messages aren't wounding me, right? So maybe someone's writing some really negative things online or in text messages. You can still say, they're not hurting me. They're not causing my emotions to be hurt, right? Finally, you can ask a yes or no question in the present progressive. To do this, we're going to start with a present form of be. Then we're going to have our subject, and we want that form of be and our subject to agree. Then we're going to use the ing form of the verb. Here's another example. Are the soldiers wounding and killing civilians? Okay. Now, I have to tell you what motivated me to pick this particular verb is that in some of my classes, we've been talking about the war in Ukraine. And so this verb came up as part of our discussion. And there are many reports of Russian soldiers wounding, right? So physically injuring people who are not soldiers. That's what we mean by civilians. So they are not part of the armed forces or not part of the military. Unfortunately, these people are also sometimes not just being wounded, but killed, right? So this is an ongoing conflict. It's happening probably, unfortunately, as you watch right now. If you watch this video in a couple of years, though, I hope this will not be true. But it is in late March 2022. Now, let's take a quick moment to look at some words that are related to our verb wound. And the first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. It can have a couple meanings, just like our verb. The first way we can use the noun wound is to refer to an injury. And again, that's an injury generally to our skin, our tissue. It's caused by some sort of cut, blow, other impact, right? So you might hear someone ask, what kind of wound was it, right? Maybe describing where, maybe it was caused by a knife, by some other instrument or tool, right? We could describe the type of injury based on what occurred. A second way we can use the noun wound is to refer to, again, someone's feelings or maybe even their reputation being hurt. So sometimes as human beings, right, we can have disagreements, right? And as time goes on, things might heal, right? Our feelings, our emotions, but someone might start to talk about that old event that caused some pain, and so you might hear this. Don't open up old wounds. Let's not go back and talk about those things that caused bad feelings or uncomfortable feelings. Okay. You might also hear wounded used as an adjective. I know that we talked about this being the past and the participle form, but it can also be an adjective, and it's used to mean or describe that someone or something is injured. So, an example of this. How many wounded soldiers are there? Right? So maybe we're talking about a particular battle or something else that occurred. Okay. Now, I want to take a quick moment to note that there is another word that has the exact same spelling, but a different pronunciation. Okay. And so if you look at the bottom of the screen here, and I'll put my cursor so it's nice and clear here, the word wound, this is the past and participle form of the verb wind. Okay, so if it helps here, I put a little note. This rhymes with found, wound, found. Okay, so sometimes as you're reading, you might see W-O-U-N-D, right? And have to kind of think, wait, what is the right context here? And so you'll look at the words around it to better understand it. There are a couple different ways to use this particular verb. I just made notes about two that I thought might be common for you to hear or see. The first way to use wound would be to refer to encircling or enfolding something. So an example of that, oh, and I have a little typo, sorry. A vine has wound itself around the tree. A vine has wound itself around the tree, right? So that's that idea of encircling. A second way to use wound is to mean to like turn some kind of key or turn a handle repeatedly around and around. So an example of this, have you wound the clock up? Right? Some clocks require us to turn a key or turn a handle in order to continue keeping time. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.